Hello to all. I am making a personal video log message because I feel the need to express myself in a way that hopefully can help people understand where I've been coming from, for the past decade, 15 years on social media. And I'm doing it because, I think a lot of people really take a lot of what I say on social media out of context and they don't know where I'm coming from. And I know that, I'm not going to get everybody to understand me. And that's not the point of this message, but I definitely want to clear some things up, and I want people to really understand where I'm coming from, because I know that a lot of people do feel attacked when I put information out there or I ask questions or whatever. So I just want to begin with, just like a simple little story about my, awakening, if you will, like my what inspired me to post the things that I post that are so combative on social media. And obviously, my whole life I've seen tons of lies. I've seen people lie constantly. I've seen some, I've never been for war. I've never been for, I've always hated politics. I've always hated, anybody trying to be the authority figure. And I remember, as a kid, believing that Santa Claus was real, and when I believe I was probably, I want to say 4 or 5 years old, and I remember like going to see if Santa Claus was gonna come through the door. I wanted to watch him come through the door and catch him, giving the gifts. I wanted that magical moment of seeing him for myself, because I actually believed in him. And I remember, hiding on the stairs and waiting for him, and then I saw my mother and father come through the door with this big bag of gifts. And immediately my illusion was shattered. And I remember just feeling so betrayed and lied to. This whole thing about Santa Claus is a bunch of bullshit. So, anyway, ever since that time, I always thought, well, what else is bullshit in this life? So I've always been a questioner of things. And I'm actually very thankful for that. I'm very thankful for my parents doing that to me, even though, it was a lie. It was a lie that taught me a lesson to never just believe everything that I'm told. So, that being said, as time went on, I started questioning, religion and government and, any authority. And then, of course, after 9/11, I watched Zeitgeist, which I think most people, or hopefully most people, have seen, which really jolted me into wanting to know more about what else is really going on, what else is happening here. So I definitely went diving off the deep end, so to speak, but not in a bad way, but in a way where it's like, hey, I want to go down this rabbit hole and see what else is going on, because I don't like being lied to. And I don't think anybody likes being lied to. So that's what I did. I went and I did what I had to do to find out for myself, what was going on. Now, obviously, I came across a lot of things that were total bunk and BS. And I definitely was able to reach a certain type of knowledge that helped me discern between, what's truth and what's not truth. And I think a lot of people have a lot of trouble with that, because we have to understand that's, in order to keep people in a illusion, they have to be taught that there's no way to know anything, there's no way to know truth, there's no way to discover truth. And I've always known that deep down, but I just, I didn't have the knowledge to prove that. And so thankfully I got into, what's the scientific methodologies of the trivium and quadrivium, which I highly recommend you get into if you haven't already, because it's about, truth discovery. That's all that is. So anyway, I got into that, the zeitgeist thing, but then I started, I got into Alex Jones, with a lot. I mean, that guy had, if you look into his stuff when he was younger, I mean, that guy had a lot of, he's got a lot, there's no denying he's got a lot of knowledge. But of course, he turned into, a conspiracy, nut from what people say. And, I don't, dismiss all his great work just because of a few crazy things about like gay frogs and lizard people or whatever. But like, I'm the type of person that I don't sit and get stuck on dismissing someone's work just because of a few things I disagreed with. And so there's times that I have shared information not because I believe it, but because I think it's really important to look at. And I think that's where a lot of people misunderstand me. And of course, the other thing to think about is like, it's really important to know that a lot of information is coming from a place where it's alarming. There's a lot of alarming information out there, because a lot of people, they know, or like deep down they have intuition, they know like something crazy is going on, but they can't really like prove it, and I think that's what a lot of people have trouble with, and I do too. I don't like it when people just throw out information because it's like an emotional response without like some kind of proper research with actual scientific proof. But we're not always going to get that, and that's why we have to, I think it's really important that we're open-minded to these crazy things and not just dismiss it. Don't throw out the whole baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. So anyway, the thing is that, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a caricature artist as well. I'm very passionate about art, especially caricatures. And I used to be a lot more. I'm not as passionate, but I still love it. I still love, being around my caricature friends. I'm forever thankful for all the creative caricature artists out there that I've got to be, part of their life and part of their community. And something that happened that was kind of heartbreaking for me is that I became very close with this caricature artist community, especially back in 2000, 2008, I started to really get into it, and I thought it was like, the coolest thing ever. And I was very passionate about caricature and just really, really felt so inspired and felt so alive in that world. And I've never really pushed myself so hard in something that I was so passionate about. So that was a really great time for me. I'm forever thankful for the time, especially the higher times of being in that community. Well, during that time, that's when I was really starting it to get, to wake up, to like come out of my trance. Just started to question things, started to look at things deeper, started to, dive into scary things that most people have a hard time doing. And I understand why, because it's scary and, we fear the unknown. So, I started to really look into the dark areas of the world, because I felt like, I've kind of already looked into the lighter side of things, but I really can't understand the lighter side of things without understanding the darker side of things. So during the time that I was in caricature, that's when I really started to get into the these really dark things. Like, I started getting into Alex Jones. I started to get into, I was even getting into lighter things like Eckhart Tolle. I started to get into Alan Watts. I started to get into, and these are all works of teachers, of researchers, people who really, were passionate about like trying to find truth, trying to understand like, how does the universe work? How do these systems of government work? What is authority? What is, a right? What is a wrong? And started to get into people like Mark Passio at whatonearthishappening.com. Like that, man, that guy has an insane amount of work, and I resonated with a lot of what he was saying. And I started to get into Santos Bonacci. I started to get into Jordan Maxwell and, Manly P. Hall and Albert Churchward and Albert Mackey and Teal from YouTube and Infinite Waters and the list just goes on and on and on. There's there's so many people that I'm like, it's not coming to my head right now. But I really have studied a lot of researchers, and that doesn't make me like, some like crazy smart, great person or anything. It just means like, hey, I did this thing because I really wanted to know like what's really going on here, because I don't want to just like take the word of, like everybody agrees with this group of people, so therefore they're right. Like I'm not that type of person. I'm like, hey, I think there's validity to a lot of people agreeing on something, sure, but does that always make it right? Does it make it true? And so I'm very much in the favor of like, hey, I got to do my own thing because I'm an individual. I can't just go along with the flow of people and agree with everything they're saying, So what I do is, what happened is that, to get back into the caricature thing, social media started to happen during this time. Like it like really got strong, Facebook and Instagram. And so especially on Facebook, it's not just a caricature community on there, right? It's, it's a whole community of everybody. So whenever I started to post things, I wasn't, like, this isn't just I had a lot of caricature artist friends on there, but it's not just them that I was posting posting information that I thought had some kind of value to it. I was posting these things because, like, hey, like, I really appreciate and love my caricature artist family. And I thought, like, man, these things are really important, and I'm just going to share them. You know, and when I started to do that, I noticed that I started to get, you know, what's called trolling, where people would come on and, you know, start calling me a nut job, or start calling me a tinfoil hat, or, you know, start, you know, making these, you know, start mocking me and really ridiculing me and making me feel bad for you know, the information I was bringing to the table. And because of that, it started to build a resentment inside of me, because I felt betrayed. I'm like, hey man, I never did anything to you. Why are you coming at me like that? So then that's what actually started to generate this, like, you know, a bad part of myself, where I started to down anybody who wasn't into truth, or wasn't into, like, you know, realize, like, waking up and realizing, like, you know, the government is corrupt, and, you know, authority isn't good, and all this stuff. Like, people just really, you know, these trolls, bullies, if you want to call them that, they built this insecurity in me, and then I started to realize, like, a lot of other people have this, and it's not right. Like, you know, the way that you know, people are called conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. It's you know, you're basically just putting people down without any kind of, like, real or, you know, obviously there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that don't have any real research in what they're saying. They're just kind of, like, running their mouth and not saying anything at all. But there are people out there who understand the truth in certain conspiracy theories, and they do prove it. And I definitely have proven it too. But the truth is that even if you are someone who is bringing information to the table, you cannot start just putting people down and calling them sheep. You can't just start putting people down, because you're just as bad as anybody calling you a conspiracy nut, or a nut job, or a tinfoil hatter, or whatever. And this is why we're so divided. And, you know, it really sucks, because it's like, you know, I know that I'm guilty of it. I think a lot of us are, to a degree. And I really think it needs to stop on both ends. Especially if you're advanced in your knowledge and you do understand these things. You shouldn't be calling people names and putting people down. It's not going to do us any good at all. And, you know, it's something I've come to realize. But the truth is that I know that a lot of that comes from being put down by these trolls who don't understand you, and they don't want to understand you. But you can't go down to their level. You cannot go down to their level. And I'm speaking to all the, you know, conspiracy theorists or researchers out there. You can't go down to the trolls level. You know, there's a reason they're called trolls, because they come from, you know, they're freaking the underworld, the dark side. They're you know, they like bridge trolls. They come from outside, underneath the bridge, to cause havoc. And anyway, I just want you who's out there, you know, my friends, my family, my caricature community, I really want you to understand where I'm coming from, because the truth is, I never wanted, you know, any division between us. And I know that I'm highly misunderstood, and I know a lot of people like me are very misunderstood, because, you know, when you put information out there that goes against people's beliefs or their religions, it tends to cause discomfort. And I understand that, because when people bring, really combative information to my views on things, it definitely causes discomfort. But I know that it has really helped me to just listen to people and try to understand where they're coming from, rather than, dismissing everything that they say because I don't agree with them, or believing everything they say just because it sounds great. There's a fine line. You have to really, I think it's really important that we entertain ideas without dismissing them or throwing them out, or believing them, without dismissing them or believing them. It's about like finding that middle ground and really thinking it through. But that being said, there really is a lot more out there, or in there, however you look at it, that's fascinating and enlightening, and it's the information. Because we live in the age of information, it's beautiful, the things that we can come across and find out about ourselves and about life in general. And obviously, during these times where, things are really chaotic and scary, I think that trying to understand who we truly are is one of the greatest things that any man or woman could ever do. And, we're going to be misunderstood, those of us that try to do that work. And that's a hard thing to deal with, especially for the ego. Because, we, like me being a caricature artist, for instance, when I had my first book published called Beasted back in 2012, I had, I had this image of myself where, hey, I love this image of myself, man. I feel like a freaking rock star, because I have a lot of fans, and, I'm somewhat popular in this little community, and, I feel like I'm doing some of my best artwork ever, and I don't want to lose that because I start putting out information that people don't want to hear. But the truth is what really matters, my self-image or information that could help people and empower people. And that was something that I really struggled with back then. And over time, over the past decade, I've definitely come to realize now especially that it's so much more important to help put out information, because we're all in this together. The saying, when one suffers, all suffer. That's a very deep thing to understand, because we're all connected. We're all connected, but the illusion is that we're disconnected. That we're separate from each other. And and that's not to say that you're not your own individual having your own individual unique experience. It just means that we're all connected. There's the illusion is the division. Separatism is the opposite of love, because separatism is fear, because fear is what separates us. And I don't mean to sound preachy, but You know, if you believe in love, then that is the truth. So, and I do. I don't just believe in love. I know love, because, and you know, and that's not to sound cocky. It's just because I've put a lot of work into myself, and I love myself. You have, most people have no idea how much work I do on me. And it's not because because I've read a whole bunch of books, you know. It's because every day I wake up, it's, you know, it's a new day, and I'm always saying to myself, what can I do today to improve myself, to make me a better person? Because as humans, we have so much potential to be something greater than who we were just yesterday. And you know, we have a free will choice to do so. So if you're listening to this, I really appreciate you giving this a chance and really listening to me, because I'm not someone who is just some preachy asshole on social media just trying to like be heard or to be, you know, be right, because that's not it at all. All I'm trying to do is bring information to the table for those who really just want to look into things and find answers or question things, because they know that, you know, we're all human, and we're a bunch of, you know, we're for the most part in this world, you can see the lies. You can see we're a bunch of bullshitting liars, but you can see the truth if you want it. If you really want it, you can see it for yourself. And you have the power to be a better version of you, which means in turn you're co-creating an environment like that, like an environment that you want to see. Because you can't depend on someone else or a whole bunch of other people to make things better. It all starts with you, always. And that's why we're all connected right there, for that reason. You know, like, because if you can't make those changes, then you're powerless and you're a victim, and you'll never see the world that you want to see. So, with that being said, thank you for listening again, and I hope that you're doing well, and I hope that we can really start to try to understand each other better without this, you know, this judgment that that's preconceived. So anyway, have a great day, and I hopefully will be making more content soon that I feel is helpful, and feel free to check it out. All right, have a good day.